Now we're rolling. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Owner Dreamz podcast.
Hey, cheers.
Here we have Manadez. He wanted to take a shot to wind down for the night. It's a Friday night, and we decided to get together on this Friday night, and this is going to be our weekend festivities. But Manadez and I go way back to what year, Manadez? When did we meet?
I want to say we were like 8 years old, maybe. Sometime in elementary school. I remember second grade. I want to say it was second grade. You had action figures on the playground. You had Rey Mysterio, I want to say. Come pulling out of your backpack.
Let's not bring that up. I had Rey Mysterio. I had the WWE action figures. I had a childhood, ladies and gentlemen.
He did.
That was second grade?
I think it was second grade. It was somewhere around there. I remember the playground specifically, Sun Valley Elementary School.
Yep, I'd be digging tunnels outside and catching crickets until they appear in your hand, and then if they appear in your hand, then you got to pull their legs off and torture them a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just kidding, you guys. That's a serial killer in the making right there. But Manadez and I. Well, his name's Manny. I just call him Manadez. It's a long story, inside joke. But we go back to second grade, and we started playing soccer together. In 10 years old? U8, or was it U9?
Was it Delfines?
Yep.
It's like U8.
U8. So 8 years old. So I've known this guy for over 10 years now. It's been an over 10-year relationship, and I can truly say that Manny and I have been great friends since, about the soccer days. Like, I've never had a question in his friendship. I've never had to, I've never had any fallouts with him or anything like that. So I would genuinely say this is a great friendship. So glad to have Manny here on our first episode since the last one was the intro. And today's topic, Manny, what's today's topic going to be about?
We're just talking.
We're just talking the way we're talking on the phone.
The way we were talking on the phone just before this evening, right? Just before. What was it? Not hiding from your commitments or what you said you were going to do? Something along those lines?
Yep, following through. Maddie and I were just talking on the phone one day. He's like, you know what? I'm down for a podcast. I said, okay, we'll schedule it. We scheduled this day about a week ago. And here we are today. He shoots me a text this morning basically saying, confirming today's
questionable text,
which that question was maybe to give himself an out. And I get it. We're all guilty of this, honestly. I can't tell you how many times I've signed up for something that I feel like it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I sign up for it, and then I'm kind of just hesitant all throughout the week leading up to that commitment, And here it comes today. 6 p.m. comes around. I call Manny. He doesn't pick up. He calls me back, and he says,
what's the first words that came out of my mouth?
Today's not the day.
Today's not the day.
I was mind blown. I was disappointed. And I was just going to be like, hey, you know what? I respect it. But I'd be lying if I said I respected it. Unless, the way you and I were just talking about, unless a crazy accident may have happened or he was like genuinely down and out in some kind of way, I would have bought it. But I said, okay, like, why can't you make it or what? And his answer was that he was tired.
Mm-hmm.
I said, bro, we're not going to run a mile. We're just gonna sit down. We're going to have a simple conversation the exact same way we're having a conversation on the phone here. And even then, if I gave you my word to run a mile and I'm super tired, I'm still going to pull up and follow through with my commitment because I gave you my word on it. I blocked off my Friday evening. Here I am Friday night, alone in my house. I got the whole setup going on, and you're going to tell me that you're not going to make it? So I couldn't let him off the hook. So I had to tell him exactly what I just said right now, and here we are. He followed through, so respect to Manadez for pulling up. And honestly, this is real life right here. This is real life. This hasn't been rehearsed in any kind of way, but this is real life emotions that happen on a day-to-day basis and happens to the best of everybody, It happens to everybody. Going back to my intro on my first episode when I was talking about how I would always try to come up with some excuse or a way out from the commitment that I had with the soccer team, I would always tell my dad exactly, Dad, I'm super sick. I'd actually throw up sometimes. So somebody would argue that it is a valid reasoning to skip out. But that was just my nerves that would get the best of me. And my dad never let me use one of these excuses to not follow through. And I'm so thankful that my dad did that. In the moment, I hated it, but I think it was very character building because honestly, when our circumstances completely lined up for you to go ahead and do something that in a way that you want to do, when are you firing on all cylinders at all time? When is everything just perfect for you to go out there and do whatever you want to do? Like, there's always something going on. That's just life.
It's rare.
That is life in general. So, how was your mindset on that phone call to actually now drive into the house and now we're here?
Well, there was definitely a switch because, all right, initially, in all honesty, thinking about this because I knew what I said to you about a week ago that I wanted to do this, and I did. Everything leading up to today was all about changing who I have been before, and so I wanted to step out of my comfort zone, and so I said I'm gonna commit to it, and I did commit to it up until 6 p.m. No, even this morning, because I knew I was gonna go. I had some things I did. Right, I went to go do my own thing today, and then as the hour got closer, I just like your mind kind of starts like, are you for real? Like, is that actually what you want to do? Do you actually? And then and it's nerve-wracking. I'm not going to lie. Imagine I'm looking here at the camera, right? I'm looking at it right now, but I'm also talking into this microphone thinking, like, nah, bro. Like, this is false. Like, is this... What are you going to tell these people? Like, honestly, like, what are you going to say? What are you going to say in general, like, in this conversation? But these are conversations I have with Jason. And a lot of you don't know this, but we have conversations on the phone rather frequently, and we can just talk about stuff like this, and we can go for, I don't know, we've had conversations up till like 2 hours in length. Yeah. And so it's getting past that little bit of zone of like this discomfort in my own chest, like but it's just, I don't know. You just gotta step out of it. And I do gotta say though, he's right though. It almost helped me. I was making an excuse not to want to be here, because I'm like, I could just go home. I could play. And by granted, I love to play video games, no doubt, right? And I can't choose to do it every day because I have commitments. So I just took a deep breath. I was like, all right. Once I said, all right, I'm going, I couldn't turn back again, right? So once I said I'm going, my mindset was like, all right, we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna sit in that chair and we're gonna do it.
and props and respect for following through, because this is probably something that you're not normally used to. I mean, I'm not even used to this. This is like the second time I make this episode, so this isn't even something that I'm used to, but I would definitely say I've spoken a little bit more on camera, like on social media and stuff like that, so I got a little bit of practice with that, but I'm not an expert. This is a little out of my comfort zone too. So, but respect to him, for Manny, for showing up, and like I said, at the end of the day, it happens to the best of us, honestly, and I think, as I was telling you, Manny was almost saying, like you said, it felt a little false, like, what am I going to tell these people? At the end of the day, I think we can all learn from anybody, honestly. It doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter, what you've done. I think we can all learn from everybody, honestly. Like, from 100%. The homeless people on the corner, I can learn a lot from them. Maybe I can learn what things not to do. I can learn on how, if I were ever to be in a position like that, I can learn that. The last thing I want to do is be seen on the corner. I just can't. I'd rather be working a job for $8.25, but I'm still learning from, like, this is how this person looks, and honestly, I don't want to be looking like that ever. I think I have too much, I guess, pride in a good way to be able to be doing that. I'd rather go out there and actually get it however I can, rather than asking. I'd rather give some kind of value and receive compensation for my value to whatever extent, but just to ask, like, as if I don't have a value to contribute, that's probably like the most belittling thing that I can do for myself. So what I'm trying to say is we can all learn from everybody, period. And as far as like the false part, I was telling Manny, I'm like, if today's not the day, what makes you think that tomorrow is going to be any better? Like, if you feel false to an extent, I mean, do you think kind of just putting this off for a different day and not following through with your commitment is going to make you feel?
You continue to do that same cycle. It's like a cycle. All right, we'll do it. Hey, because we talked about doing this already.
Yep.
Maybe a week ago.
Yeah.
And didn't do it then. So now it's this week, and then what? Next week, and then what? The week after, and then what? The week until it's just okay. Whatever. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, and I told Manny, like, you know what?
Self-sabotage.
It's a weak voice that we all have. It's a weak voice that we all have in our head. It's the self-sabotage. Yeah. I have it. You have it. The person watching this has it. And I told Manny, like, and I know it's the weak voice because, the morning you checked in with me, you said you were on board. And it wasn't until the final hour to where it came down to actually you pulling up and recording this damn thing that you said you couldn't make it. Like, that's voice is not you. You allowed that weak voice to become stronger than your real voice. It almost drowned out what you told me that you want to do, regardless of the lack of consideration for somebody else's time, regardless of the amount of respect that this other person could have potentially lost, for you. You said, fuck it, I don't care. I'm going to throw it out the window. I just can't show it because of how I feel. And I think sometimes when we just kind of operate from our own little thinking, like, and I'm guilty of this too, like, sometimes we get trapped in our head and we can't think beyond ourselves.
Right.
And when we actually get out of that, like that's why I think it's so important to serve and to be considerate of other people. And then, on the back end, like just put yourself last, and on the back end, you'll just always be okay as long as you're looking to serve and, follow through with your word, and just hold yourself up to those values and morals that you desire to live by. I think on the back end, you'll be okay, regardless of how tired you are, regardless of any kind of unfamiliarity with the things that you're doing. But as long as you're moving in that direction and you genuinely feel like you're doing your best, like how could you not feel good about yourself, regardless of the outcome? The thing is, I'm showing up day in and day out, and I know if I keep doing this, I'm just stacking these wins until eventually that weak voice is almost completely muted out. I think it's always going to be. I think it's a constant thing. We have to kind of keep our foot on its neck once we got it down, or else if not, it'll start creeping back up. It's almost like pulling the weeds out. You got to pull the weeds out at all times. It's a conscious thing that we got to do day in and day out. If not, the weeds start growing back in. And that sounds honestly very dreadful. Sounds overwhelming. But what else are you going to do? Give up? Give up and let the fucking weeds take over?
You can't give up. You got to keep going. And in all honesty, there'll be days you enjoy yourself, you have fun, you enjoy the day, whatever, right? You find things that you enjoy, but you got to that voice that's in your head, because we all have that voice. There is a voice, right? And I was a big culprit of it in terms of how much I used to vape. It was I would say catastrophical, like the amount of vaping. And who knows? I don't know what the long-term negative effects of vaping can be. I know right now there's definitely no positive effects of vaping, right? And that's a different topic. But regardless, there's things that we do to try to escape. That voice is always going to be there. That voice is always going to be there, and the voice, it's even as you grow stronger, the voice stays there. It's just you grow stronger at being able to recognize that voice and knowing that voice doesn't have that control over you, the same way it did when it first appeared, before you even recognized the voice was there. Like, it's in a sense it's a demon. Some can say in the book, like Outwitting the Devil, it's a demon that's always there, that's trying to bring you down, that's trying to keep you unaware. In a sense, you got to be able to have the strength to outwit that own little voice that you have in your mindset that doesn't allow you to do the things that you want to do. And sometimes you don't know the things that you want to do, so you let that little voice continue to. It takes the first step. Sometimes I feel like is knowing that voice is there, and then you start thinking to yourself, like, what is it that I want to do? Who is it that I want to become? And then that's, in a sense, I feel like even doing something like that at times helps you recognize that little voice, because that little voice keeps you doing who knows what. It keeps you drinking, it keeps you smoking, it keeps you vaping. What I'm getting at is not using like other things to run away from having some type of purpose, from being someone that's willing to stand out, or being someone that's like, hey bro, there's people that hate on you and you don't even recognize it. Sometimes it's like just micro hate in ways that, like, you try to start doing something and then people are like, oh, look at that, like, oh, you're doing this, oh, like, and that little voice of them maybe doing that too comes like, oh yeah, they're right, don't do that.
Yeah,
don't do that.
that little voice could almost side with them, right? But it's still that little voice that we're constantly fighting. And I really love that Manny went there, because, like you said, sometimes like not even having maybe the clarity on what it is that we want to do, but even asking ourselves, what is it that I want to do? Like, if I don't know what I want to do, like, even asking yourself that question, that's a start, because now your purpose is to figure out what exactly it is that you want to do. Like, instead of just, like you said, numbing that discomfort, because it is very uncomfortable to have these conversations with ourselves, or question ourselves in this way. It's so uncomfortable. It's so hard that literally 95, 97% of people run away from it. And I love that he went to the vape too, because I feel like same thing. This 95, 97% of people, they don't only just try to run away from it, but they numb it with things such as vaping, things such as drinking, things such as jacking off, and you can go ahead and try to laugh at that, but I'm sure watching, you're probably getting a whole bunch of little clips that you've been kind of watching, these last couple, I'd say maybe even hours, and it's so hard, and we all have our vices at the end of the day, so, and I'm not perfect. I got demons of mine that I try to fight every single day. Honestly, I think I've done a very good job of fighting the biggest demons that I have in my life, and I like to think that I've overcame some of these recently. Like I said, I'm not perfect whatsoever, but there's things that I have been working hard towards I guess, leave it in the past, and I can confidently say, sitting here today, that I feel like I definitely have done that. And once again, it's not a one and done. It's a constant effort. It's a constant effort. So I'm not gonna say like, oh, I've became successful at it completely. Success is a daily thing that we have to do and stay on top of it every single day. If not, once again, those weeds will come right back up. That demon will come right back. So it's a constant effort. So I don't want to say I've got it all figured out, because at any moment you can start slipping, and I gotta stick to it day in and day out. I gotta stick to it day in and day out. So I love that Manny went there, because yeah, I think a lot of people can probably relate with that.
I want to say something to what you said with the fact of some of those vices. You would just say checking off, vaping. Sometimes not admitting to some of those things, like in a sense, I don't know. Maybe someone's looking at this and like, I don't do that. No, that's not me. And then a week from now, it happens.
Real quick, if there's somebody on here that's like, that's not me, this shit doesn't apply to me, send me a DM. I need to get you on this podcast. I got to ask you some questions. How the hell do you got it all figured out?
Yeah, honestly, please.
Oh, go ahead, Marcus.
Is you got honestly, saying and sitting here and being like, yep, mm-hmm. You got to admit to it. You got to admit that it's a part of your life so that you can actually take it away from your life, in a sense. I had to admit to myself, I was vaping a lot. How many conversations do we have? Fuck, Jason. Fucking threw the vape away. Mm-hmm. 2 days later, about to vape again, bro.
Yep.
And it's not easy, like, because in a sense it has some type of control, but you got to admit that, like, yeah, I do that shit, bro. I do vape. And then you got to be able to admit it so that you could tackle it. You got to go on the offense, in a sense, to be able to figure out, like, yourself and those demons. You got to admit them. And then once you can admit that they're there, I think then you're able to slowly pull away from them, in a sense, or push them away and replace them with other healthy habits. That working out, I remember I stopped working out in the gym. I stopped working out, I don't know, for months. I don't remember the last time I had gone until about recently, about a month ago. I just started doing it again for some odd reason, but it took a while for me to get back to that point, because I was lost in my own head. I was doing these vices. I was vaping, and those things were the things that were taking me out of my own head, quote unquote. I thought that were helping me ease my own anxieties. Different topic, but I thought they were helping me ease my own anxieties and things of such. But in reality, you got to be able to admit those things so you can tackle them, so that you can start replacing them with other things that are beneficial for you, in a sense, because you need things that make you a better person. Oh, we can get on a whole different topic about this, because these are things that, like, men in general, I feel like, need to be able to admit so that they become men for the future. Like that famous quote that says, what is it? Weak times create strong men create weak times. How's that go? Do you know it?
Good times create weak men create hard times create strong men create good times, and then the cycle just repeats itself over and over again. And that's exactly like you said what it is. A lot of people just try to take it as easy as possible through their life and just lack that acknowledgement. Like you said, first step is acknowledgement. You can't really fix anything if you don't necessarily know that this thing is broken, or this thing's not to the best of your interests. If you can't acknowledge it, then, where do we start from, right? So first step is acknowledgement. But like I said, people lack that accountability. So therefore, they're just keeping themselves weak. Like they try to get out of situations that put them in a little bit of stress, or a little overwhelming, or just uncomfortable, or makes them unhappy in today's world. That's exactly what today's world's feeding you. It's feeding you, if it doesn't make you happy, don't do it. Take a mental health day if mentally you're not fully there. Like, what? Since when especially as men, like, if a woman wants to take a mental health day, by all means, like, maybe, you can buy that a little bit more to an extent, but where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? Like, once again, how often do you wake up every single day and you're 100% every single day? You and I both, we have responsibilities that we have to take care of every single day. They don't care if you're 100% today. You may feel a little sick. Somebody might have told you something the night prior that didn't make you feel too well. Your girlfriend broke up with you, or vice versa. You guys are going through some stuff. Doesn't matter what it is. You ate some bullshit food, which I would argue like that makes you feel pretty bad. You know, we can get into that on a different podcast because a lot of people kind of just underestimate on the power of the foods that we eat. But yeah, I mean, things are not always going to be lined up for you. So I don't think that's something that we should definitely be resorting to in today's day. As often as we do, obviously life happens, and there's times sometimes where we need a break. But just know that life does not take a break from you. So just because you're taking a break from life doesn't mean that it's the world's going to pause for you. Life keeps going on, and honestly, I would argue that those moments are some of the most character building moments that we can go through. Is pushing when the times get tough, and when we opt out of that, it's just like we're doing ourselves a huge disservice. As weird as that may feel, before you showed up here and you didn't want to show up here, I think you would have missed out on this great character building opportunity of just getting out of your comfort zone.
Out of my comfort zone.
It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with the damn podcast. It's just putting yourself in a situation where that little voice almost took over, and tonight you're going to fall asleep knowing like, hey, that voice almost took over, but guess what? I got the W at the end of the day. And you're stacking these daily wins, and imagine how you would feel day in and day out as long as you can keep beating this little voice, let's say 365 days a year. I mean, that's a hell of a year. Let's go ahead and say 300 days a year, because obviously we're human. Sometimes we may slip, but let's just try to keep that to a minimal. 300 days a year, you won. How would you come out of this year feeling, honestly?
It'd be a good feeling.
Just stacking daily wins, and these things.
Feeling inside. If you can reflect on that and say, like, you can see your positives, it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
I'm reading this book called The Slight Edge right now, and it talks about how just 1% makes a huge difference. I think we underestimate how big of a difference the little things make.
The compounding effect, something like that?
The compound effect. Exactly. We underestimate, give this example of this father that was passing away, and he was pretty well off, and he had 2 children, and he asked them, hey, I can give you guys $1 million up front right now, or I can give you a penny doubled every single day for the next 30 days. One of the sons got the $1 million up front, and he took it and ran with it. The other one said, I want the 1 penny doubled for 30 days, because the father had given him a book that just kind of kept repeating this concept of the compound effect. And one of the stories in there was, for example, this one's it's a fiction story, but it was a great story that 2 frogs had jumped in a bucket. 2 frogs had jumped in a bucket of milk, and they loved the milk, so they started drinking the milk until they got to the point where they got to the bottom of the bucket, and they realized they were stuck. I mean, for one, they were full, and they didn't know how to jump back out because obviously the milk level was down. There's very minimal milk at this point, so they're stuck, and they just kept paddling, trying to get out. And eventually, one of the frogs, there was 2 frogs in there, brother frogs. One of them gave up, and he just kind of just drowned. He got tired, and eventually just drowned. I don't know if frogs can really drown in real life, but this is a fiction story. But
this is what happened.
This is what happened in the story. But the other one kept paddling. He didn't even know why he was paddling. And then he got to the point where it's like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. How the hell am I going to get out of here? Until he felt something solid underneath his little frog leg. And he was able to push himself out of that. And what that solid thing was the milk that he kept paddling in was slowly being whipped into butter. The frog whipped the damn milk into butter because these little actions that made him feel like he wasn't really going anywhere. And he was able to step on the butter and jump out of the bucket, and he made it out alive. He kept pushing.
This is a real story, right?
I mean, it's a fiction story, but if you want to take it to a real story, but going back to the real story, the kid who took the penny doubled every single day, actually after that 31st day, I think he walked away with, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, don't quote me on this because it was either $2 million or $5 million, one of the two. But a penny double every single day was a lot more than $1 million. And somebody would be like, why would you get the penny double every single day? But that just shows you the power of the compound effect. So those little things that you feel like don't make a difference, those little small wins that you lack giving yourself credit for, believe it or not, those are the biggest game changers. That's what takes somebody from good to great. It's those little differences, believe it or not. So don't underestimate the power of the small steps forward, the small daily wins, because
I'd say it's important though to have some type of goal at the end of that, because you can make small steps in very many different directions. You can make small steps. I don't know, maybe I'm making a small step direction towards becoming a better chef by cooking for myself dinner every night. And that's, by all means, that's a good thing, right? You cook yourself dinner, you learn a new skill. Or I make small steps every day to read 500 books in a year, X, whatever. or I make small steps every day to become a bodybuilder, right? But is it that my goal is a bodybuilder? Is it that my goal is to be a better chef? Or is it my goal to be the most intellectual reader ever known to man? Or is my goal to be just a better human being? And all those are little steps actually adding to this, not those other small things. Like, I think it's important to have a clear, defined goal at the end of it all. You're trying to reach it. Your process are all these little things that you're adding up, like you said, that make you a well-endowed human being, a wealthy human being, a healthy human being, and an intellectual human being. It's all those little steps, but knowing that my end goal is to be X.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, what they say, like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. But like you said, just knowing that there's a big picture out there to keep you excited for that next step, because sometimes that little next step is like I say, it's easy. It's so easy to do, but for that same reason, it's so easy not to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have that bigger picture, then it's hard to take this little step and think that one day this little step's going to lead to this big picture. But like you said, I think it's important just to have that grand vision first, and just know that little by little you're on your way there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like how Manny also brought that up, because these small steps can be taken in any direction, and just the same way that work for you in a positive manner, it can also work against you. Those small little things that you do day in and day out that you think that are harmless, they're harmless until they're not. Believe it or not, how people develop cancer, or these disorders, or these eating disorders, or just health issues, do not come from just eating pizza one night. I've had moments where I've had about 10,000 calories in one single day because I just binged like crazy, and it didn't kill me, and it didn't give me any diseases, not that I know of yet, at least. But if I'm doing this day in and day out, let's say not even 10,000 calories, but let's say I'm drinking a soda every single night. Compound that for the whole year. I don't know what the hell I would look like today. And these little things that we, once again, underestimate, that we are involved in day in and day out, they add up. So make sure that this compound effect, make sure that these little steps are working in your favor rather than against you, because they're very powerful, and they're so subtle that they're so easily to be overlooked.
I have a question for you, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Are you would you say you're happy with yourself as a person?
I'm content with myself. I feel like I can genuinely sit here and say that right now, at this very moment, January 31st, 2025, I am the best that I have ever been in all aspects. Physically, mentally, spiritually, I am nowhere near perfect. I have a ton of room for growth in all those aspects. That's why I say I'm content. I'd rather use the word content, but I genuinely believe that everything that I've picked up from mistakes, trial and error, from examples of other people, from studying certain people, from reading books, whatever it may have been, I feel like the best that I know right now is what I'm putting forward in my life. And I genuinely feel like, for example, I was talking to a business partner the other day, and I was telling her that, she's like, what are you doing today? What are you doing this week? And I'm like, just working the gym. She's like, oh yeah, you're very structured. You're very good at staying consistent. I'm like, I like to think that everything I do day in and day out is truly the best that I know what's good for me. From the foods that I eat, this food that I'm eating, this certain meal that I'm eating has a purpose in my life. And until I find out better, I will do different. I will do different. But for right now, my routine has been what's been working for me, from my gym workout, from things that I eat, from my activities with work, from the people that I associate with. These are, I think, the best things that I can be involved in. And until I find out better, then I'll make some changes, which I'm constantly looking for better. So not to say that I'm not going to change. I will change, but the only way that I will change is for the better. And like I've always said, like, if you genuinely know better, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter if you know better, but you're not doing better.
I think that's a good point. Is what you said, and I want to branch out on this. Is you said what I'm doing are things for the best. So that means you believe there's something that you're doing what's best for you, as opposed to something else. What is it that you're doing that's best for you? What is it that you like? What do you see that makes you best? What is it, that grand picture that you're like? Because the things you're doing right now are making you better, but what is that better person of you that these things are helping you achieve?
That's a good question, because yeah, better for what, right?
Yeah,
making you better for what? Just as a bodybuilder, what's the motivation? What's the drive for it, right? Like, what is this making me better for? Okay, like, yeah, I eat the same stuff every single day. And what is this making me better for? Like, is it making me better in a healthy manner? Like you said,
mentally, maybe.
It could be mentally too. It could be in all those aspects. But yeah, like you said, going back to what you said earlier, is just I think that vision and just having a direction and maybe like not like a destination, because I don't want to say that I'm, saying I'm being destination based with this, because I think it's a forever going journey. But I think it's important to have at least a checkpoint. At least a checkpoint. Okay, career wise, I want to do this. I want to help X amount of families. I want to help out 35 families with the real estate goals this year. Not that once I do that, I'm going to be done, but it's making me go in the direction that I want to go. With fitness, same thing. I want to be, a specific weight, a specific body fat, and it keeps me in line. It keeps me away from all these bad things that maybe distract me or tempt me from, that are honestly around on a daily basis. People think that it's easy, but no, I'm just human, just like everybody else. I get distracted. I get tempted. But I think it's just having this strong desire to get to whatever checkpoint it is that I have for myself is what honestly helps me to really walk the straight and narrow as best as I can. And I'm human. I slip up. I had about 5-6 chicken sandwiches last night.
Deep fried?
One of them was deep fried.
Deep fried.
So I improvise in a way to where I'm still on my path. Though. I was kind of like losing my balance, but still right back on my path. That's what matters most. Don't deviate too much from the path. Stay the course.
Just a little bit, though. Just a little bit.
I was like
deep fried chicken only.
The deep fried chicken, like I lost my step. I started stumbling, but I did not fall.
You're like, whoa.
I started stumbling, but I got right back up. So, yeah, that's what it comes down to. But, man, it is. Anything else that you want to add to this episode here? I think we've been at it for a minute. Any last words that you think that maybe you want to add in?
I do. I think one of the biggest things for anyone and for myself that I've been just in life in general is sometimes you're gonna experience some things and you're gonna and sometimes you don't recognize it, but the biggest thing is whenever anything happens, sometimes the best thing is to just sit with it. Just sit with it. Don't rush to conclusions. Don't rush to reaction. No matter what, just allow yourself to sit there for a little bit. Analyze the emotions you're feeling. Analyze everything, because sometimes you're clouded and your emotions can tell you a different picture than what actually is happening in the objective reality. Instead of just rushing to conclusions, sit with it, breathe. I think the biggest thing is to breathe. Sometimes we forget to breathe when things get tense or things put us out of our comfort or when our anxieties increase. And you know what your anxieties are. You know what your nervous tics are. Mine used to be biting my nails, biting my cuticles, right? And those moments, allow yourself to just breathe, and actually you'll start to realize that sometimes it's not that big of a deal. You let and then you realize the answer was right in front of you the whole time. You just breathe, and you'll know what the answer is. Take a breath.
Clear the mind from any like crazy emotions that are coming up. The cloud that may be coming up, right? Just clear the mind, and then maybe move forward. And I mean, I might have to just extend this damn podcast a whole another 30 minutes, but I like that you said it too, because it's hard to have clear thinking when your mind is clouded with these vices that we just talked about, with these things that we have been aligning with that don't necessarily help our judgment, or, like I said, a lot of times you're just numbing your brain. So like your brain's almost like half asleep. So what's really driving you at this point when you've just been numbing your brain the whole time? How can you really trust your own judgment? So that's another reason why I think it's so important to try to walk the straight and narrow and have some kind of purpose out there that it's going to keep you aligned with healthy habits. That way you're functioning and you're firing in all cylinders, so you can actually trust your judgment to an extent. And ultimately, just align yourself with God. That's exactly what God is about. God's all about, discipline and just trying to walk a straight and narrow, as boring as whatever, it may seem as somebody in today's day might say, because I think God's somebody who is been put on the back burner in a lot of areas, in a lot of aspects. But I think that's the most powerful thing anybody can lean into. And this, everything that I'm talking about here, God, the Bible puts it in a much deeper, better way than I can communicate it. But that's, I think, one of the best things that we can lean into. And when you're truly grounded to that and aligned with that as best as possible, I feel like that's when we truly have the best judgment. That's the best judgment right there.
Good talk. That's
the power of prayer. When things come up, pray to God and He'll guide you and clear you from anxieties, any kind of emotions that maybe, fogging your vision, and ask him for direction. And that's what will kind of put you on the best path. I can guarantee that.
That's good.
So with that being said,
Good.
Manadez, thank you so much for opening up, man. I'm sure this talk here will probably help quite a bit of people. At least I hope it will. And then, whoever might tune in, and anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Shout out to everyone watching.
Shout out to everybody watching, because, we don't know who might be watching. So if the person you might give a shout out to might not be watching. So shout out to everybody watching.
Thank you.
Catch us on episode number 3.